All right, welcome back to another episode of Cover 2. I'm Justin. This is the preacher.
I'm the preacher. Good to see you. Thanks for tuning in.
Mr. Chris McCurley, thank you so much for coming in today with me, sir.
Yeah, this is great. I'm enjoying this. I think it's getting a little better every time. We're kind of feeling our way through it, but we're getting there.
Hey, I think it's going pretty good. I've gotten some positive feedback about it. I think people are liking the show, and there's definitely an appetite for high school football around here.
Absolutely.
And so I'm looking forward to talking with you some more today.
Me too, and I'm looking forward to getting the season started. You know, we got some things coming up, and it's right around the corner. We've got August 10th. We've got middle school football, right? Mm-hmm. So we got Burns going to Innovation Academy. We've got Joe Burns coming to Dixon.
Absolutely.
I'd also implore our listeners and viewers to send us middle school schedules. Mm-hmm. I've had a hard time finding for Charlotte and William James, and love to kind of keep track of that, maybe mention that from time to time. So if y'all want to send us schedules, that'd be great. You can just post them on our Facebook page.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll try our best to, tell everybody about the games and try to get people to come out in the stands and help support the local football teams, because that's really what we're all about.
So I went to Creekwood scrimmage a couple of weeks ago. They scrimmaged Clarksville. Went to Dixon County. They scrimmaged against Page. Some good things. Some typical scrimmage and first time on the field against an opponent. Some things that probably could improve on. But as far as I know, nobody got hurt, and that's kind of the big thing. So still got one more scrimmage, and then the season kicks off August 18th. Dixon County versus Creekwood at Creekwood. That'll be interesting. Also, we got college football around the corner, Tennessee and Virginia, September 2nd at 11 o'clock at Nissan Stadium. Vanderbilt host Hawaii August 26th. And then Titans and Bears preseason coming up August 12th. First regular season game for the Titans is September 10th. So we're focused on DC and Creekwood football, but lots of football around the corner, and also volleyball, cross country, girls soccer, cheerleading is all underway as school has gotten kicked off, and it's an exciting time of year.
It really is. It really is. It's summer's great. I'm a teacher. I love to have the summer off and get a little break time. But honestly, I really enjoy the first part of the school year, and I love when the sports get back going. And it's finally here. I'm excited. Actually, I think when people are actually watching this, it'll be the day before the Creekwood game, and I think it'll be the some good middle school action that day. So
yeah.
It's happening.
It's happening. Got a good guest today.
We do.
A guy that you know pretty well, a guy that I'm learning to know a little bit as I'm new to the community, but very excited to have Casey Patrick on with us today. Casey, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us.
Well, thank you very much. My schedule, just like you guys, y'all talking about it, school starting up. It is fun, but it is busy.
It's a busy time of year, isn't it?
Yeah, and I guess I'm just like everybody else, just trying to get ahead of the curve, just trying to get stuff so I'm not so behind. But it is busy, but it is the best time of the year. This is better than Christmas to me. I love it when football's starting up.
So you cover all sports in Dixon County?
I try to. Yeah. I think that's kind of the job description, but. Obviously, just like you guys know, I mean, it's just so hard to get to everything, especially, Dixon and Cheatham County. But I've got a really great support system of people that work around me, and I'm blessed because basically almost all of my coaches, or I don't want to say my coaches, but all the coaches that I work with are they're really responsive. They make my job easy. So like I said, I'm lucky and blessed to be where I'm at. It's just, man, it's busy, but it is quite a bit of work.
Tell us what all you have your hands in. I know Main Street Preps. I know Dixon Post.
Yeah, Dixon Post, the Cheatham County Exchange. I help a little bit with the Fairview paper that we have, but I don't want to take any credit for anything that they do. Nancy does a great job out there by herself.
Yeah.
But I've got my own little. My show that I do that we release, it's a little 30-minute show where I just blabber on about whatever I want to talk about for 30 minutes, and then I've got we're just like I mean you guys, we're going to try and start up our own football show for Main Street Media. Hadn't released yet, so hopefully whenever people see this, they have a better idea of what's coming. But we'll have our own show, and I'm gonna hopefully get to go to both campuses and speak with both coaches after the game, and or at least sometime in the weekend after the game. And so we've got all that going. I'm just like everybody else too. I guess I got a few little side hustles that I've got sports cards and stuff that I deal with. I coach the Creekwood. I'm one of the assistant coaches for the Creekwood bowling team, so I'm just like everybody else. I got a million different things going on, just trying to keep up with all of it. I guess.
That's right, and that's okay. Yeah. So I was coming over here to do this interview. I'm leaving the office. Many people know I work at Walnut Street Church of Christ. One of our staff members, Chris Hedge, who is a longtime resident, Dickson County, he said, "So who's on the show today?" And I told him, "Casey Patrick's on the show today." And he goes, "Funny thing about Casey, he's well known for something."
Yeah.
You can go to his Twitter page, but Casey appeared on TV a little bit irate. Would that be the word to use?
Yeah, and definitely. I mean, there are plenty more words you could use to describe this situation.
So this was the Tennessee Vols playing Indiana
Correct.
in a bowl game. What, 3 years ago, 4 years ago?
It was right before COVID, so it would have been the 2020, January 1st of 2020.
Okay, things weren't going well.
No.
This is when Jeremy Pruitt was coaching the Vols, and you were caught on camera in a fit of rage, maybe.
Yes.
And that became made you a local legend, maybe.
Well, if anybody, of course, there are going to be Tennessee volunteer football fans that watch this, and they're going to be able to tell you that the time that we watched Jarrett Guarantano at starting quarterback was a very enraging time. Now, Jarrett is I'm sure a quality human being, worked really hard, and I've reiterated this. I was not screaming at him that day. I was screaming at Jeremy Pruitt because he's a grown man and he's in charge of who's on the field, and Jarrett did not need to be on that field. He was not playing too great, and I still maintain to this day I was dog cussing Jeremy Pruitt, but that was so long ago. Now that you think, and it's only a few years ago, but it feels like an eternity,
Yeah.
But yeah, I was mad that JG was still out on the field, and I think I think Tennessee had scored like at that point maybe 13 points against Indiana, who isn't necessarily known for their defense.
Right.
Yeah, I was.
So you were justified. Is what you're saying?
I mean, I didn't care if I wasn't justified. I was hollering at somebody. I had done paid quite a few dollars to go down to Jacksonville, Florida, and I had my fun. Don't get me wrong. I mean, we could have lost that game, and I had plenty of fun that weekend. But I didn't want to lose to Indiana, especially after all the talking I had done to Indiana fans on the way through the door.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they were sitting right behind me too, so I didn't want to deal with them on the way out. And they didn't want to deal with me on the way out either. After Tennessee won that game, I was extremely obnoxious.
Well, and they started playing better after you did that. So see,
I think that's where a lot of the miscommunication comes from. I blew up on Twitter because Tennessee fans they're all kind of crazy in their own way, and a few of them were like they thought that my efforts were the reason why Tennessee won that game, which anybody with a brain can tell you that's not what happened. But
let's roll with it, though.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's what happened. Everybody kind of rolled with it, and I had, like I told him, I think I had like 3,500 followers after like 12 hours on Twitter, and I got to be on a few shows like this, and I just, I really enjoyed that whole process.
All right, guys, let's jump into Dickson County Creekwood football. That's really what this show is geared towards. Talk a little bit about the season. What do you predict for both these schools? We thinking playoffs for both? Are we thinking winning season? What do you see?
Honestly, it's so funny because right before the start of the season, everybody's trying to figure out what's going to happen, and which I told him this. When I was here and did that other show, I told him that I think the first game of the year is going to tell us a lot about how far these teams can go. Because I've seen Dickson lose games because they've lost to Creekwood.
Yeah.
Because the way which we know that high school kids, sometimes it's hard mentally for them to be at the top of their game, which it is for anybody. So I'm not trying to single them out, but I have seen some teams that have lost future games because of losing that game. It's so hard for me to sit here and tell you what I think could happen. But what I think in the back of my head is going to happen, I think Creekwood's going to have a year where they do a lot of growing up. I think Creekwood's really, really young. They're going to make I think they're going to make a lot of mistakes, and I think that size-wise, I think they're at a disadvantage. Yeah. And with Dickson, I think it's some of the same and some of the opposite. Dickson's really, really big. I don't know if they've got some kids that are fast, but Creekwood's got some speed to them. But Dixon's really, really big, and they've got a lot of kids, and they've got a lot of momentum. And the thing that's different with this Dixon group as opposed to some of the other Dixon groups that I've covered, this Dixon group has a certain feeling of confidence that hasn't necessarily resonated throughout that program in the years that I've covered it. And, I mean, even when I tell you that gives me – I mean, which I'll tell you guys, and I've told everybody else, I'm obviously like a Dixon and a Creekwood fan. I'm not supposed to be, and I try not to actively root for anybody when I'm at the games, but I'm rooting for both of these teams to be really good.
Yeah.
And when I see some of these kids from Dixon and just how they walk around, they've got their head up high. They believe they know what they're doing. The way Coach Tomlinson addresses them, it's not. I've seen other coaches that are no longer here, and the way they talk to children is different. It's different from the way Tomlinson is addressing people, and it's just different from the way these kids feel about themselves and the football team. Yeah. Creekwood's had the same coach since I've been doing this, so it's a lot of the same things. And don't get me wrong, there's great. It's a good thing to have routine, especially when you're good at it, and they're good at it.
Yeah.
But Dixon, they needed to change their routine, and I've been telling people I don't know how good they're going to be, but they got to change the culture first, and I believe they're in the middle of that.
I do too,
and they may even be on the back end of changing the culture.
I agree.
And even I went to I go to Applebee's a lot. I've got a friend of mine that works there, and next to Applebee's is a little place called Laredo's that makes the best tacos in Dixon. That's not what I meant to say, but there's a young man that works there, and I walked in the other day. The bathroom at Applebee's was out, so I had to walk over to Laredo's to go use their bathroom. And I walked in. There's a young man working behind the counter, and he plays for Dixon. And he said, "You were at the game Friday night?" And I said, "Yes, sir. I worked for the newspaper." And he said, "You think we're going to be any good this year?" I said, man, the answer to that question is, do you think you're going to be good?
Yeah.
And he goes, I think we're going to be pretty good this year. I said, then there's your truth.
Yeah.
But you have to believe that. And even if you go into this first week for Dixon, and I've seen it before, if Dixon loses to Creekwood, if you start to lose that belief that you're good,
doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter anymore. You got to believe whatever you want.
What's interesting, all that you said, I tend to agree with. This is my first year covering both. I'm going to do color commentary for Creekwood on the radio, but I helped coach the baseball team at Dixon, so I've got hands in both programs, and I'm like you. I want them both to succeed and do well. Head coach at Creekwood goes to church with us. A lot of the faculty at Dixon goes to church with us. So yeah, I've got vested interest in both of them. But I've heard over and over again that since Creekwood opened in 2001, that all the bigger kids came from the north part of the county, and that's who went to Creekwood. And when they split them, and the skill kids ended up at Dixon County, and it's almost like it's flip-flopped this year. Mm-hmm. It seems like the skill that Houston's got some skill kids over there at Creekwood more so than the big linemen, whereas Dixon County's kind of got the big linemen. Not that they don't have skill kids too, but it seems like it's flipped a little bit. I noticed that.
Yes.
I've been to both scrimmages, watched both teams, and I feel like there's that's kind of the case, that it's flipped a little bit, and that there are some sizable kids at Dixon, and Creekwood's replacing a lot of kids.
Yes,
but they're still going to be, they've got the culture set. Yeah. I mean, every year they're going to compete. They're going to probably go to the playoffs. Whereas Dixon County, it seems like things are changing.
Yeah. Well, and just like he asked me when I was on the show last time, he said, "Who do you think's going to win the game?" And I told him, I said, ever since I've done this job, I took over October 15th of 2018. And early 2018 was the last time Dixon beat Creekwood. So I didn't cover that game. Yep. But ever since I've been working for the newspaper, Creekwood has won every game against Dixon. And it just when he asked me who I wanted to take to win the game, I'm going to take Creekwood because that's the only person I've seen. That's the only team I've seen win this game since I started working for the paper. But I feel like Dixon, I don't want to say they should win the game, but Dixon, I believe, has the best chance to win the game since I've worked at the paper, because they do have such a difference up front. They do. They're a lot bigger. They're more experienced up front, and that's a lot of scrimmages where any football game is won. And I don't necessarily believe it matters which level you're playing at.
Yeah, I agree.
And the thing is, though, Creekwood, they do have skill players, which is it. They've always had a few of them, but like you're saying, it's a little bit different. It's like flip flop, because you have people at Creekwood like Xavier Knight and Will McKinnon who are just electric with the ball in their hands. DeModest Henderson, there are a few others. But then at Dixon, and you have Elijah Fernandez, you have Malachi Redmond, who, and I've told him, I like watching Malachi Redmond run the football. He's just he's a beast. But
yeah.
And Fernandez, his name is going to be well known throughout the area before too long.
Oh,
if you don't already know who he is, you will know.
Absolutely.
But it does kind of feel like it's a little bit different, and good for Dixon though, because Tomlinson he wants to run trip, he wants to run triple, so it's he doesn't necessarily want to line up and like the old Coach Burns, he's not going to line up and run 4 different vertical patterns. He wants to line up and play football, and so it's good for them that they're a little bit bigger, but it's so hard for me to take somebody other than Creekwood to win this game. Like I said, because they're the only team that's won. But I feel like Dixon's got a really good chance this year because they are so big. They're so strong. And we had their kids come into the bowling alley last week or maybe 2 weeks ago. Tomlinson wanted to bring them in and do a little like a team retreat thing. And they brought all of them in. And it was close to 100 kids.
Yeah.
Not all of them could bowl because at the bowling alley we got 12 lanes. You could put 5 on there at a time.
Right.
And it was cool to see all the kids come in. They're all wearing their climb shirts and their Dixon, stuff. But they start filing in, and they're like just bigger and bigger and bigger. And I was like, that was the first time that I had seen them that close. I've been to practice and I've watched the scrimmage, but to see them this close and walking past, yeah, they're big.
Yeah,
they're big. And I think Dixon's got a real chance this year that they probably could. They probably could beat them. I think they could.
So Casey, both teams are replacing a quarterback. You've got, a couple of candidates at Creekwood, maybe 3. You've got several candidates at Dickson County, 3 or 4. And you've got a stable of skill players at Dickson County, as well as some guys that could step up at Creekwood and take the place of a Sam England, who was a glue guy last year. And I think that's going to be important for both teams, is for who's going to step up and be the leader. And what do you think about that? Who do you see as kind of rising to the top and being a leader for both squads and kind of, helping them with, leading them through this season and having a successful year?
Well, and I think, it's nothing new, but when you do have a new quarterback, you more or less have to lean on your running game. And it doesn't really matter what level of football you're at, but your running backs – Elijah Fernandez and Malachi Redmond are going to be leaned on, and there are other running backs there, but they are also – Fernandez is a vocal guy.
Yeah.
Gramling is going to be a leader whether he likes it or not, because he is such an important part of the football team. Over at Creekwood, you might have a guy like Stone Grove at nose tackle or right tackle, and then Xavier Knight is going to be – he's going to be one of my favorite players to watch in the entire county this year. Yeah. Will McKinnon's going to be their home run threat. He's going to break a few. He's quick as lightning. But Xavier Knight is going to be he is a bell cow. He's going to get 25 touches. He's going to play linebacker on defense the entire time. He's one of the better football players in the entire county, and he's going to be looked upon for Creekwood. Alex Bradshaw is another one. Charlie McCormick, and I know you mentioned McCormick earlier, but Bradshaw and McCormick are 2 guys. Jaden Elliott's another one. Jaden Elliott, who he's another one of those guys in the Creekwood locker room that is just going to people are going to look at him to be a leader.
Yeah.
And so you're going to have to have a few guys like that. On Dixon's end, that's going to be one of the things. I'll be honest, I don't exactly know off the top of my head. After I get past Redmond, I get past Gramling. They did add Coach DeMonte Daniel, who is a vocal. He's as good as it gets.
He is.
And I don't care if you're working down here at a factory or you're working over here at the Humane Society or you're on a football team. You need somebody like that in your group of people, because DeMonte Daniel is inspiring when he starts talking to you, and it doesn't matter what he's talking about. He starts talking to you and he starts doing it, pointing a finger. You ready to go? And you can see it on those kids' faces. You could see it last Friday. The last 2 weeks I've done something I've never done before, but I'll watch the first half at one game and then drive and watch the second half of the other game. I've been able to see both Dixon and Creekwood for the last 2 weeks, and just watching DeMonte Daniel walk up and down that sideline and just full energy the entire time.
Yeah.
I know he's not a player; he's not a player anymore, but. Creekwood's had those guys for years, the talkers. Coach Smitty's one, I was talking about him earlier. But DeMonte Daniel's going to be like that. And it's really important to have the grown adults, too, in your locker room that can help, kind of keep the peace, at times. But that is going to be one of the storylines that hopefully I do a good job of covering this year, is going to be who steps up. Because even if, let's say, Alex Pinson starts for Creekwood and Wyatt Gramling starts for Dixon, let's say both of those guys are really, really good, have great seasons, you're still going to need other players to step up, especially if you want to get in the playoffs and you want to win serious games. And so I guess that's on my end to let everybody know, the players that are stepping up and making plays. But that is going to be one of the main storylines this year, and it's going to be fun to keep up with because there are new names that the community is going to get to know.
And there's no shortage of guys to do that. I mean, there's a lot of candidates. The nice thing about this year is, and I know that, before the season starts, everybody's undefeated and everybody's excited about it, but there's a different buzz in the air about Dixon County. They've struggled the last several years, and there's a different kind of excitement because of Coach T, the culture that he's bringing. At Creekwood, it's kind of plug and play. They lost some guys, but they feel like they got some other guys that are just going to step in and keep it going. And rightfully so, they believe that, because there are some good guys, especially some guys on the outside that are difference makers. So it's a fun time of year because the season's about to get rolling, but it's also fun when you go into the season knowing there's great potential for both of these teams to be pretty good, if not really good, and go a couple of rounds deep in the playoffs. Am I right?
Oh, for sure. And for me, it starts up front with both teams. And on both sides of the ball. Defensively, I think Dixon's going to be better than probably I give him credit for, because Tomlinson has the controlled chaos that he talks about, which I love. He's been talking about that since Montgomery Central, because I covered him when they came down here for a scrimmage a few years ago, and they had guys everywhere up on the line jumping around left and right, and you just had no clue where they're coming from. And he told me then, he said controlled chaos, and he's kept that. So I think Dixon County's defensive line is going to be pretty good. I think Creekwood's defense and the front seven is going to be pretty good, again, because I really like their coaching. Coach Smith, he's pretty good on the defensive side. But the offensive line for both teams is where I think most of my questions come from, and I think that's most of the question marks for both teams. Dixon's probably a little bit more experienced with the guys that they have, because they do have a few guys coming back from last year, but they're still inexperienced, and so is Creekwood. And Creekwood's a little bit smaller too, so it's definitely. I think that's where your season is made, or we figure out exactly how good or bad the teams can be. If they start to figure out offensive line, what the best way to attack is, who needs to be where, what's your best. The best way for you to go about scoring points, if both of these teams can figure out an offensive line that can at least hold it down. They don't have to be, Ezekiel Elliott rookie year Dallas Cowboy offensive line, but if they can hold down the fort, a little bit, I think you've got a chance for two teams. Creekwood's younger; they do have some learning to do, but Dixon. They have some experience, but their learning is learning how to win and do it consistently. Creekwood knows how to win and knows how to do it consistently, but these kids got to learn how to do that. Dixon has to learn how to get back to it. And so I think but I think up front, if you got two teams that form some sort of offensive line that can hold up, regardless of what happens week one, I think you got two teams that could win more than 5 games and definitely get in the playoffs.
So tomorrow night is the opener between Dixon County and Creekwood. Who wins?
I've been taking Creekwood, and I'm going to continue. I'm going to take Creekwood right now because I just like I told him, Georgia's going to win the SEC until somebody beats them. They're going to win, And so it's like for me, it's I'm going to take Creekwood because they haven't lost this game since I've started the paper. Although like I said earlier, I think this is probably Dixon County's best chance to win this game. Last year they had a good chance. This year I think they have a better chance. Right. Creekwood is younger. They are relearning. Dixon just sort of retooled. They were able to bring back most of the guys that they had. Yeah. You got to replace Flippo, who I loved watching, but him, Colby Lambert, a few other guys. Don't get me wrong, but Dixon's got more coming back. Their kids are bigger. They have some of those outside weapons that we've talked about on the offense that you have to have, especially if you've got a younger quarterback or maybe a passing game in general that's not necessarily electric. So I think Dixon's got the best chance that they've had, but I just can't not take Creekwood. I need Dixon to beat Creekwood before I can take them. And if that happens, then next year I'll probably be more willing to actually argue one way or the other. But I'm going to stick with Creekwood because that's who's won, and that's who I would put my money on if I had to.
Yeah, it's kind of a wait and see for me. I sit back and watch because this is my first year. I got here late last year and didn't get to see the season play out. But I'm just stepping back and kind of watching and observing, and I want to make an assessment after this first because I've heard all about it. How it's, a rivalry, and, I personally wouldn't want to play my rival the first game out of the season. I'd want to play them later in the season, but there is kind of mystique about it. It's exciting. There's a buzz, and, like we've said before, it kind of sets the tone for the season. Unfortunately, because this game doesn't matter at all in the standings to nobody except those kids on the field because they want the bragging rights, they want the county title, and so it's going to either propel or maybe possibly, sink some kids going forward. And I guess all that makes it really exciting. But I want to see how this plays out because I think it's going to be close. I think that it's going to be a good ball game like it was last year. And it may come down to who's going to make the least amount of mistakes.
That's exactly what it's going to come down to. It's going to come down to whoever makes the least amount of mistakes, and it's going to come down to whichever defense doesn't give up that big play.
Yeah, bend but don't break.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think both offenses. Creekwood's going to throw it more. Dixon's going to run it more. This is going to be a complete change from what we're used to. Yeah. But Pinson's going to throw the ball around. Dixon's going to run triple, and I don't necessarily believe either offense is going to just run up and down the field. So what's going to come down to is it a kid like Ashton Marsh for Dixon who breaks out and gets going for a long touchdown, or is it a kid like Will McKinnon for Creekwood who breaks out and scores a long touchdown? Yeah. And I think that's going to be the difference in the game. I think the loser stays in single digits. Winner might score 10, might score 13. I don't think it's going to be high.
Yeah,
I don't think it's going to be high at all. But that's just my personal opinion. I might be wrong, I'd love to get to Friday and it'd be 35-38. I like offense, but it's just not going to be that. I just don't think it will be.
I don't think it will be either. Casey, thank you so much for coming on this program.
Right, thanks for having me.
This has been great, and I hope you'll come back and join us. And Justin, it's another show. We got opening night tomorrow night, and we're going to see how that plays out and have lots to talk about the next week. We're going to hope to have some players on from both schools throughout the season. Hopefully get the coaches back on. Hopefully have Casey back on too. Yeah. But
I'm down.
It's all about to kick off, and I'm excited.
I'm excited too. I mean, like we keep saying, we've been waiting for this, and it's finally here. And I'm really looking forward to talking about the game afterwards too. There's going to be a lot to break down. Who knows what's going to happen? But whatever happens, it's going to be fun to watch. And I can guarantee you this: is I'm not going to miss a play.
That's right.
I'm going to be glued to it. It's out at Creekwood this year, so we'll be heading out that way. And just getting ready and can't wait to watch it. And like I said, we're looking forward to talking about it afterwards. And like you guys already mentioned, I mean, it sets the tone for the season. So I personally hope it doesn't ruin either team's season, whoever loses, because somebody's got to lose this game.
Yep.
Hopefully whoever loses rebounds immediately and both have a successful season. But like you said, it's hard to play this rivalry game at the beginning, but they do it, and I think it's what makes it so great. Yeah. I was talking to Chuck Daniel the other day, and he said, there's nothing like the atmosphere at a Creekwood and Dixon game. Mm-hmm. So Dixon County game. So really excited.
I love that. Well, I want to thank everybody for tuning in, and please share the news about the podcast. Cover 2 on Facebook. We're on Twitter as well. Spread the word.
Absolutely. Enjoy the game. We'll see you guys next week.
Bye-bye.